Peterson, a volunteer with the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. You are watching Business Connection, a show produced by the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber is committed to finding business solutions by collaborating with regional business leaders on key issues. We're so happy that you joined us today because we have Chris Kershner, one of my all-time favorites, as our guest today. He is Vice President of Public Policy and Economic Development with the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. Great to see you, Chris.
Thanks, Kathy. Great to be here.
I just love having you on here because we always talk about such interesting things. I mean, every topic on Business Connection is interesting.
Absolutely.
But you always have
just put our
so
notes
much
aside
energy.
and
we'll
talk
just
about
chat.
the weekend.
That's right.
Yeah.
How do things go? Well, we'll get to the business first.
That's right.
You know, the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce produces a biannual legislative and regulatory agenda. And that's really our topic today. We're going to talk about that. And you recently finished the 2013-2014 agenda. Can you explain why a legislative and regulatory agenda is necessary?
Absolutely, Kathy. Thanks. And thanks for having me today. You know, public policy and advocacy is one of the things that the Dayton Chamber really focuses on. It's one of those real values that we can bring to our members. It's different from our traditional return on investment values ads that we bring to our members. Because public policy is really focused on what we can do to advocate on behalf of the Dayton area business community to our government and elected officials. So the Dayton Chamber has 3 full-time lobbyists on staff that focus on public policy advocacy and lobbying and creating a good legislative and regulatory environment that encourages business growth in the Dayton region. We really are that voice of the Dayton area business community on a lot of legislative and regulatory issues. So it's something that the Chamber's done for a long time. We partner with chambers across the state on these initiatives. We partner with the Ohio Chamber of Commerce. We partner with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce on making sure that we have a coordinated message that is reflective of the broad business community that we have here in the Dayton region. Now to get into your real question of this legislative agenda and,
yes.
and why we do it. Since public policy and advocacy is such a key characteristic of the Dayton Chamber, we like to have a blueprint for those legislative activities. So every 2 years, in coordination with the new General Assemblies, we create a legislative and regulatory agenda. This is really a 40,000-foot view of the legislative and regulatory focus areas that the Chamber is going to have over the next 2 years. We just finished completion of the 2013-2014 legislative and regulatory agenda. That is it outlines all the different initiatives we're going to be engaged in the subject areas where we're really going to focus on for the next 2 years. It does not necessarily highlight specific bills that we're going to be taking a position on, but instead highlights the philosophical viewpoints that our members have asked us to represent for the next 2 years. In compiling that agenda, we have 3 committees at the Chamber that approve this agenda. So the Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee, which is made up of about 20 members of the Dayton Chamber, the Energy and Environment Committee, which is made up of about 20 members that focus on energy and environment issues at the Dayton Chamber, and the Military and Federal Government Affairs Committee. Again, about 30 members on there that focus on federal issues for the Chamber. Those 3 committees help compile our legislative agenda every 2 years. Staff also gives input according to what we've heard and feedback we've gotten from our members. And then we submit that agenda to our board. And our Board of Trustees votes and approves that agenda. And once it's voted on and approved, that gives us the direction that we need to move forward and look at what we're going to do in the legislative and public policy arena for the next 2 years.
Well, it sounds like not only do you have a strong team working on this, it's a very thoughtful process. And that's one thing I admire about the Chamber and really about the organizations in this region. We don't do these things in a vacuum, and we do work together. And the fact that you have the different committees that are, pretty good sized committees, so there's a lot of conversation there. What are some of the highlights of the most recent agenda? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I appreciate you recognizing that, we are a member-driven organization, and we take that very seriously. And our members are the ones that set these priorities, and then it's our job to reflect those viewpoints of our members, and that's what we do. I should also mention, after we complete our legislative and regulatory agenda, it is then distributed to everybody in the state legislature, and specifically to folks in our legislative delegation, as well as statewide officials and folks in our congressional delegation and in the U.S. Senate out in Washington, D.C. We want to make sure that they know what our priorities are for the upcoming 2 years, so that they can then take that into consideration when they're considering legislation that would impact the Dayton area business community.
Sure.
Now, our most recent legislative and regulatory agenda was completed just a few weeks ago, and it has 11 broad categories that focus on a number of different issues that the Chamber is going to be looking at in 2013-2014. Some of these are reflective of past agendas, but there's also some new additions this year, new things that have emerged as priorities for the business community. And I'm just going to walk through those with you real quickly.
Sure.
so that you and everyone else can understand what those priorities are and what's new and different in this agenda. The first priority you're going to see in that agenda is state operating budget. The Chamber likes to ensure that the state operating budget is meeting, has the right administrative efficiencies it needs, so that the state budget can remain whole and can remain in the black. And then we also like to look at new and innovative ways that the state of Ohio can administer their budgeting procedure, so that it continues to be in the black in the future and in new administrations in the future. So something that we've incorporated into this is a recommendation called budgeting for outcomes. This is basically a zero-based budgeting technique. Right now, that is not used for state of Ohio budgeting, and the business community took a hard look at this and says, we think this is something that you should seriously consider as you're looking at preparing your biannual budgets. So that you'll see that the administrative efficiencies and budgeting for outcomes under that state operating budget section. The next section is transportation and infrastructure. The Dayton Chamber has always been the lead private sector organization for transportation and infrastructure advocacy. Now, a question I get a lot of times is, why is the Chamber engaged in transportation and infrastructure? Well, it's very simple. If our members at the Chamber, our manufacturers, our service members, clients of our members, cannot get to and from their destinations quickly and efficiently, then it can really impact the bottom line for some of our businesses. So we've been engaged in infrastructure advocacy, making sure that the Dayton region is receiving the proper funding it needs to upgrade its infrastructure and transportation network, so that we can continue to have this efficient system. A great example of that is the Austin Road Interchange. Dayton Chamber worked very hard on the Austin Road Interchange, which is in southern Montgomery County, northern Warren County. The reason why we did that was not just because we thought, let's put in another interchange off the highway.
Right.
But there's great business development opportunity that can result from that, and is currently resulting from that interchange. Teradata has their world headquarters there. Motoman Robotics has their world headquarters. Thompson Hine Law Firm has their regional office there, and a number of other offices have moved out there, all because that interchange was put in. That's why we are really focused on transportation and infrastructure. What you're going to see in our legislative agenda is challenging ODOT and the General Assembly to find revenue generating opportunities for the Ohio Department of Transportation without overly burdening the business community. We don't want to see any new fuel taxes. We don't want to see vehicles mild traveled taxes put on the business community. But we do want to see what we can do to cut costs and create efficiencies that are able to generate revenue for transportation projects across the state.
Sure.
More revenue in the pot means more opportunity for us to be able to get the projects that we need funded and moving forward.
Absolutely.
So you're going to see that in there. You're also going to see minority business development. The Dayton Chamber has taken a strategic focus on minority business activities. We have the Minority Business Partnership at the Dayton Chamber that is run by a wonderful lady named Belinda Stinson. Focuses on what we can do to diversify spending for businesses and create minority assistance opportunities for minority business owners. Well, there also is a component that has to do with state advocacy there. The Ohio Department, the Department of Administrative Services at the state of Ohio has a minority business office in which they're able to create incentives and assistance programs for minority business owners. We're going to be working with them to make sure that they're aware of the great minority business community that we have in the Dayton region, and some of those opportunities are coming down here.
Exciting.
Very exciting, very exciting. Few more areas that we're going to cover. Regional cooperation, with everything that Montgomery County's been doing with the MCO futures.
Yes.
We want to make sure that we have the right incentives, the right legislation at the state level that encourages that regional cooperation. We also have a section there talking about national defense. With Wright-Patterson Air Force Base having 29,000 people employed there and the largest employer, a single-site employer in the state of Ohio, we would be behooved if we didn't focus part of our federal advocacy on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So you're going to see mention in there about making sure that we continue to be strong through the next BRAC, but also creating a strategy around UAVs and UAS opportunities in the Dayton region. You're also going to see mention in there about trade and safety. We like to have safe working environments for our employees, and we work with the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation on ensuring we have that safe working environment. And we also want to make sure we have trade policies that are friendly to our businesses in the area. And then the last couple areas are energy and environment. We've talked before on this show about shale development and the opportunities that are resulting from fracking opportunities on the eastern side of the state. We're going to continue to focus on that. There's a number of businesses in the Dayton area that are engaged either directly or indirectly with shale and natural gas drilling in Ohio. We want to make sure that stays a priority for us at the Chamber and that we have the right business environment that encourages those businesses to thrive. And then we also have the Regional Green Task Force, which is a partnership with Montgomery County, in which we certify businesses that are taking steps towards improving their green footprint in the area. And then healthcare. Healthcare has been a hot topic, especially after the passage of the Affordable Care Act at the federal level. As many folks know in the Dayton region, we had concerns with the Affordable Care Act. Well, the Affordable Care Act is implemented here. President Obama's been reelected. I don't see the Affordable Care Act getting reversed anytime soon. So we're trying to move forward with compliance assistance for our members. What do our members need to do to be able to comply with the Affordable Care Act and to meet the requirements that are set forth? And then the final area is education. We like to focus on a lot of education initiatives that help raise the bar for our public and private schools and help provide opportunities for our young children in the area. But specifically, we're going to be focusing on Learn to Earn initiative, which is really a K-3 initiative focused on making sure students are prepped for those upper grades of their secondary education. So that's it. That's what we're working on.
Is that all, Chris? Do you have a one that you particularly are engaged in or really interested in?
Yeah, transportation infrastructure has been something that I have always had a particular interest in. I was appointed recently to the Ohio Transportation Review and Advisory Committee by Governor Kasich that focuses on those transportation initiatives. I've been assisting the Ohio Department of Transportation with their recent proposal that would create some revenue through the Ohio Turnpike. So transportation infrastructure is really one of those that we enjoy and that we focus a lot of our efforts on. But everything's important.
Yes.
They're important to a diverse group of our membership, so we like to focus on all those different areas.
Fantastic. Now, how does the agenda relate to what other business organizations and chambers of commerce are working on across the state? You touched on that a bit, but can you elaborate?
Yeah, every chamber has their own system, their own way of setting their priorities. This is our way, this is what works best for us, but it might not necessarily be what every chamber does. We do communicate with the other 8 major metropolitan chambers of commerce across the state. We communicate regularly with them so that they are aware of our priorities, we're aware of their priorities, and we can coordinate when the opportunity exists. We also have a group called the Leader Group, in which we meet with the 25 executive directors of the local chambers of commerce. So these are more of your community chambers, your Kettering, Moraine, Oakwood Chamber of Commerce, your Beaver Creek Chamber, those types of chambers. We meet regularly with them and communicate to them what we're doing as well, so that they're aware. It might match up with their agenda, it might not. We just believe in opening up those communication networks. We also work closely, like I said, with the U.S. Chamber and the Ohio Chamber. Recently, all the chambers in Ohio, the major metropolitan chambers, produced something called Redesigning Ohio. Redesigning Ohio was a strategic state budget recommendations for the state on what the business community believes is important for the state of Ohio to implement when they're doing their budgeting process. We did that 2 years ago, and we had about 80% success rate with it. But there's still about 20% that needs to be done. So just this past December, we did an update to Redesigning Ohio. That update included a progress report on what we've accomplished, what we haven't accomplished, and then what still needs to be done. So that's been distributed to everybody in our delegation. They're aware of what still needs to be done, and I'm confident we're going to get some great results from them.
It really is a fantastic team effort. You know, I say that a lot, but we are known in this region for working together and communicating with each other to make sure that we're all really working for the best, you know, for
Absolutely.
our citizens and our businesses. So that's exciting. Now, you touched on it a little bit, but can you talk about the legislative initiatives that have already emerged from this agenda in
Absolutely.
2013?
Yeah, so the agenda has been completed. It's out, and now we're using that as our blueprint to see what we're going to focus on for this year. And already we've had about 3 issues that the Chamber's taken positions on, that we are advocating on, that we are lobbying on, that we are testifying on in Columbus. And I'll run through those with you real quick.
Great.
The first one's House Bill 51. This is the initiative sponsored by ODOT and then subsequently sponsored by Representative Ross McGregor, who's part of our delegation from Springfield.
Yes.
That would create some revenue generating opportunities for the Ohio Turnpike. And just to bring everybody up to speed on the Ohio Turnpike is in the northern part of the state and is currently a toll road that helps with commerce and commuting from east to west on the northern part of the state. Well, there's been talk in the past about what we should do as the state with the Ohio Turnpike. Should we sell it? Should we generate some revenue by selling it? Should we lease it? Should we raise the tolls? What should be done as far as revenue generation is concerned? ODOT did a study and they determined that it should not be leased or sold, that it should remain in state hands, but there is an opportunity to sell bonds based on future toll revenue that's predicted for the Turnpike. Those bond sales will generate about $1.5 billion in new revenue generation for the Ohio Department of Transportation. That's $1.5 billion that can be used on transportation projects in the state of Ohio. Now the legislation, House Bill 51, does say a majority of those dollars will need to stay in the northern part of the state. We're fine with that down here. And a lot of people say, you know, Chris, what do you mean you're fine with that down here? That's more money in the pot for the state of Ohio. Having those dollars on the northern part of the state is good for the state because it will help advance some of those projects, which will subsequently help other projects advance throughout other parts of the state. And then that's where we come into play.
Yes.
And we'll be able to really advance some of our projects because there'll be just more money at the table that can be used to help advance what we see as a priority for the business community. So that's House Bill 51, and we're working on that. We testified on that last week in the Transportation Subcommittee of Finance and Appropriations, and our testimony was very well received there.
Very good.
The next initiative is expansion of Medicaid in Ohio. This is not a standalone bill. It's part of the budget proposal that was proposed by Governor Kasich and the administration. Now, generally, Kathy, expansion, government, and chamber don't all usually go in the same sentence together, okay?
Right.
We generally are not government expansion advocates, okay? So this one was difficult for us. But let me explain the reason why we decided to support Medicaid expansion in Ohio. Under the Affordable Care Act, it was first mandated that all states had to expand Medicaid to cover a 38% gap that wasn't currently covered. Currently, folks up to 100% of the poverty level have coverage. Folks 138% to 400% of poverty level have coverage. but there's a 38% gap there where there's no Medicaid coverage. Those individuals currently are going into our healthcare system. They're considered uncompensated care. They're getting treated. They're using the emergency room as their family physician, and that's where they're getting their treatment done. Subsequently, that's reflected in our private sector insurance rates. You know, if somebody who doesn't have insurance goes into our hospitals will not refuse care to anyone. They will treat that individual, but then they're going to have to raise the cost that they charge private payers to make up for that uncompensated care. So that's the way the current system works. Affordable Care Act said all states had to expand Medicaid to cover that population. The U.S. Supreme Court in their ruling last May said that the federal government cannot require all states to do that, but it's a choice for states to do it. So Ohio had to make the choice on whether they were going to do that or not. Governor Kasich made that choice and said, I want to expand Medicaid to cover those individuals. The Dayton Chamber took a look at it, and we decided to support it. We decided to support it because theoretically, if you're taking those uncompensated folks out of the hospital system and are now compensated by Medicaid, that will lower the cost of the hospitals, lower the cost of private insurance, which theoretically should ultimately lower the cost to the business community.
Right.
And it's covering a set of individuals that need to have coverage. Currently their children are covered, but they might not be as adults. So morally it seems to be the right thing to do. But like I said, expanding government and chamber don't usually go hand in hand. Now the next question on that usually is, what's this going to cost us as a state?
Yes.
And that was one of our questions. The federal government, under the Affordable Care Act, through new Medicare taxes that they've implemented, through other taxes that they implemented through the Affordable Care Act, they are going to reimburse all states 100% of the cost for expanding Medicaid for the first 3 years. And then after 3 years, that goes down to about 90% reimbursement. So going forward, we will have at least a 90% reimbursement from the federal government for expansion of Medicaid. That still leaves a 10% gap, and that caused us some concern because we didn't want them to come to the business community to make up for that 10% gap.
Right.
Ohio State University did a study recently that took a look at that 10% gap and where those dollars would come from. And it was actually determined that through current revenue streams that the state has, as well as through economic development opportunities that will result from Medicaid expansion, that will make up for that 10% gap, and there won't be any needed taxes or assessments on the business community. And there'll actually be a net positive revenue gain for the state with the expansion of Medicaid. That gave us a greater comfortability with moving forward with our position on that as well. Lastly, the last one that has resulted from our legislative agenda is House Bill 7. This is a bill that regulates internet sweepstakes cafes. First question, what's an internet sweepstakes cafe? You might have seen around town, and they're mostly in some lower income neighborhoods. These internet sweepstakes cafes that have popped up, they're basically ad hoc slot machine parlors. Okay, they generally take over an old building or an old restaurant, and they create what is an ad hoc slot machine parlor. They're not regulated by the state. They don't have to do any revenue reporting requirements to the state. They don't have to pay taxes on those revenues to the state. They're legal. They're legal through some loopholes in Ohio law. So they're not illegal establishments, but they're not under the same regulations that traditional casinos are. Right now where Penn National Gaming is building a racino up off Needmore Road in the city of Dayton. Rock Gaming and Penn National built casinos in Toledo, Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati, all which are regulated, and there's tax revenue being generated for the state of Ohio that comes from them. These internet sweepstakes cafes are not. The way they get around the law is that they are actually call themselves not gambling facilities, because when you go into this facility, you have to buy a card. You buy a time card that allows you so much time on the internet. Let's say you want to buy that card for $20. Then you sit down and plug that in, and you have 20 minutes on the internet. Well, the only place those internet machines are going is to internet-based slot machines. Whatever you win then, those points get put on that card, and then you could trade that card in for prizes or cash at the door when you leave. That's the way they get around it. It's not that we think that they should be run out of business. We just think they should be under similar regulations and scrutiny that the other casinos and slot machines are in the state of Ohio. Provides a fair and balanced competitive playing field that will allow everybody to be on equal ground as they move forward and try to expand their business.
Well, it sounds like the legislative agenda is very robust. A lot of work to do, but you've done a lot of work already. At the end of the year, how do you gauge success based on what you've put together for the legislative agenda?
Sure. Well, success is first and foremost, how well is our business community doing? If the business community in the Dayton area is doing well, then I feel like we're doing well. If there is a business-friendly environment, you know, if we have an environment that encourages business growth, both legislatively and through the regulatory and legislative side, then that's good. I mean, if businesses are coming to me and saying, you know what, it's pretty easy to do business here. I'm able to get the permits I need to get. I'm able to file the right paperwork with the state, and I really don't have a lot of problems. That's what means the most to us, is when businesses have an ease of operating here in the Dayton region.
Yes.
But we also do a legislative scorecard annually. This legislative scorecard takes into account those bills that I recently talked about, and other bills we'll take positions on, and it monitors how our legislative delegation votes on them. And then we report that to our members. So our purpose in doing that is we want our members to know which members of our legislative delegation are business friendly, and hopefully none are not business friendly, but if they aren't business friendly, which ones are maybe having challenges with supporting the business community.
Sure.
It's more that transparency in government and providing information to our members so they're aware.
Sure. Now, if members of the community want to learn more about legislative agenda or the chamber in general, what would you suggest?
Oh gosh, DaytonChamber.org.
Yes.
We have a public policy section on there, which takes you to a whole website we have dedicated to public policy and advocacy, as well as our new legislative agenda. They can download it there, and they can always call me directly at the chamber. Our number's on the website as well. So DaytonChamber.org.
Very exciting time.
Thanks, Kathy.
Anything else you want to add, Chris?
Gosh, let's see. What haven't we covered? One issue area that I didn't mention, and gosh, this is one of the most important issues to our members, is tax, regulatory, and labor. That's part of our legislative agenda as well. And something new that we're going to find in there this year is that we're going to be advocating for Ohio to be a right-to-work state. Mm-hmm. Michigan and Indiana recently announced that they were right-to-work states. And what right-to-work state means is that an individual cannot be forced to join a union. It doesn't say unions are bad. It doesn't say we don't want unions in the state of Ohio. It just says we believe employees should have the choice to say, yes, I want to be a part of a union, or no, I don't, and they shouldn't be forced to join that union. If we're able to pass right-to-work legislation in Ohio, it would put us on an even playing field with our neighboring states, which would help with business and economic development opportunities when companies are looking at relocating to the tri-state area. Though we'll be on the same playing field with our partner states.
Sure. Chris, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Chris Kershner with the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. And you have been watching Business Connection. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned for a message from Phil Parker, President of the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce.
One of the greatest roles our chamber plays in our community is that of watchdog over good government. We have historically been actively engaged in hundreds of public policy issues that affect not only business and jobs, but also the quality of life within our region. For more than 100 years, we've been engaged in advocating for projects ranging from the creation of our local flood control system, construction of Wright State University, interstate highway system, and much more. But we also weigh in on issues that we feel can and will provide good, efficient government for our region, state, and nation. True, ours is an employer's perspective, one that is much needed at those discussion tables. For without an advocate for our businesses, the employer environment would be so onerous that they would find it difficult to prosper here in our area and be forced to relocate, or worse yet, go out of business. Additionally, we have always encouraged and protected the rights of differing opinion and have opted for taking the high road when debate occurs. At times, our community, state, and/or nation can come under siege with partisan bickering and uncivil discourse. We must have organizations such as ours who are willing to offer public opinion and suggestions as to how we can be a more successful community and better democracy. we do just that.